near and dear to my heart. I take it very seriously. I take the decision you guys are considering here very seriously. And I never want somebody to make the leap into business ownership without a lot of confidence and clarity on why they're doing it, what it's going to look like, and that it's the right move for them. And so I want you guys to leave this session with a lot more clarity, a lot more of a picture of what this might look like for you, and a lot more of a sense of if this is the right move for you or not. Probably if you're here, you're curious if owning your own practice is actually realistic, or if it's just for people who have business experience or a lot of money or crazy risk tolerance. Um, Maybe you're somebody who, you've been thinking about this for a while and you don't want to wake up in another 10 years and find yourself still saying, this is something I want to do someday. Still, making excuses, still wondering what if. And the third one, and frankly, this is a big one, is that you're probably scared of making a massive mistake that costs you your savings and your security. And, some of you guys have reached out and asked and said, you're concerned about your family's well-being, which is totally reasonable. If any of those concerns resonate with you, I would love just a yes in the chat, just to um, no. Are these some of the reasons that you're here? Does this resonate at all? And then, again, as we go, if you have questions, yeah, for sure. If you have questions, if you have any reservations that you've been kind of holding in your head, I'd love for you to just share those in the chat as we go, because I think that probably everybody in this call is in a similar sort of boat, and you guys will probably find that there's a lot of overlap in the questions and the concerns that you guys have. Um, so here's what we'll be covering today. First, I'm going to show you why the traditional advice about opening a practice, renting a space, building it out, getting loans, is really not the best way, in my opinion, to start a new business. I'm going to walk you through the exact three-pillar system that I use to launch my own practice, with less than $30,000, and how it's specifically designed for you as a clinician. You don't have to be an MBA. You don't have to have a lot of business experience or expertise. And third, I'm going to walk you through the actual math of understanding what it takes to replace your income, what it costs to get started, when can you quit your job. We're going to make it concrete and not theoretical. And I'm going to share some of the mistakes that I see people make when launching and how to avoid them. And finally, if you get through this and you're like, man, I actually think that now is the time and I'm ready to do this, then we can talk about potentially how I could have the privilege of helping you make that transition. So, who this is for? If you're a licensed hearing professional interested in launching a practice this year, and you want a safer and leaner way into practice ownership, it's not really for somebody who's, someday maybe, or I'll never quit my job, never leave my job. It's really for people that are considering making a change. I know I see some familiar names in the room and I see some new names in the room. So some of you guys have some context for me already. Some of you don't. I am an audiologist. Again, I'm based in the Dallas area. I worked in a private practice my first year and a half as an employed audiologist, and um, I was in my mid 20s. My wife was newly pregnant, and my boss at the time wanted me to partner in her practice, and it was not a personality fit for me. And I let her know that I wasn't going to be a partner in her practice, and I was unceremoniously let go from the job that I was in. And so I remember a very cold winter ride home on the bus back to my house that day that I was let go, and I was just like, okay, well, I've got to do something, and I couldn't see myself working for somebody else. And so we had, in my practice that I was working at, done some marketing at senior living communities, going out and doing, clean-in checks and screenings and that sort of thing. And I just thought to myself, well, is there any reason why I couldn't just, get a travel bag, get an audiometer and some equipment and just go out on my own and just make that my business model? Because I was in my 20s. My wife was working at Starbucks. She was newly pregnant. We didn't have any money. We had negative money. I was able to get a little bit of money. I was able to talk my family into loaning me a little bit of money to buy some equipment. I went out and started this business, and I was able to pretty quickly grow it to a seven-figure practice. Over the course of several years, added additional locations, added additional services, including a full vestibular rehab program. We had a full PT practice. In addition to our audiology practice, we worked with tinnitus patients. Around the time of COVID, we scaled the practice back, and I really focused on systematizing and getting myself out of the business so that I was running it more as an owner operator as opposed to a clinician. Got it to where it just took a day or two of my time every week and sold the practice. And since then, I've been doing business consulting, helping people launch practices and also helping established businesses in our industry, private practices, as well as some of the big groups and organizations you guys have probably heard of. I've helped about 50 clinicians launch this model across multiple countries. So we definitely have great proof of concept that this works. And so, yeah, let's dive in a little bit. But I just want you guys to know I'm not like a guru who's talking about this in theory. This is all stuff that I've lived and that I've done a lot of reps with my clients over the past several years to prove that this stuff really actually does work. So right now, you're kind of at a fork in the road if you're on this call. Path A is more of the same. It's, busy schedule, capped income, somebody else sets the rules. And, more patients don't equal more freedom. You're trading your time for money. Path B is ownership. You own the business. You have uncapped earning potential. You direct patient care the way that you want to direct patient care. You have low overhead, which means you have high leverage and you get freedom and flexibility. But the thing that isn't clear when we look at path B, because if it were actually that simple, everybody would just take path B, right? But the entry to path B looks terrifying. It looks like risk and complexity and debt and risk of failure. And if that weren't the case, everybody would just do it. But what I want to do today is help that entry onto path B look a little bit more attainable, look a little bit more realistic, and look a little bit more clear. So hopefully that sounds okay to you guys. Before we do that, I'd actually like to give you an opportunity to really imagine what you actually want in your life and career, which is something that we don't often do. This is actually an exercise that I do with my with my private clients. So what I'd actually like you to do, if you're able to, is actually take out a pen and paper, and we're going to do a little bit of an exercise here. I want you to imagine for a moment that I have a magic wand, and when I wave my magic wand, we get to fast forward a few years and imagine what your dream life and your dream practice looks like. So, you know, for a bit of structure here, what I've observed is that everyone ultimately starts their own business for some combination of the three things that you see here: money, meaning, and freedom. And how that pie is kind of divided depends on, it varies from person to person. It probably depends on the stage that you are in, season you are in life. But we'll use that as a framework for this exercise. So the first thing I'd like you to do is reflect on money. So I'd like you to write this down. But again, I've waved the magic wand. What's your income in this business? What are you actually taking home? What financial goals have you achieved? What needs and wants have you met? I'll give you a moment to reflect on this and write down your thoughts. The interesting thing here is that most of us don't really take the time to give ourselves the opportunity to reflect on what we actually want. And if you ever find yourself stuck doing this exercise, another way to think about it is, what don't you want? Is there anything that you have right now that you don't want? And that becomes a pretty good indicator of what you actually want instead. And if you guys have anything that's kind of like a light bulb or kind of exciting or kind of feels scary, I would love for you to share it in the chat. Anything feel kind of like, oh wow, if I give myself the opportunity to think of possibility, it feels exciting, but it also feels a bit intimidating. It makes me question if it's possible. Now, how about meaning? How does your business create a sense of impact and purpose and fulfillment? What does that look like? What drives you to build it beyond just you? And now finally, freedom. And if I'm getting ahead of you, that's okay. I'm going to have you give me a thumbs up in the chat here in a minute when you're done. But when we think about freedom, how do you spend your time? Again, we wave the magic wand. How do you spend your time? How much time off do you take in a typical week or month or a year? What's your role in the business and what does your life outside of work look like in this magical dream life? So once you're done with that, give me a thumbs up in the chat. Seeing some thumbs ups here. I would love for you guys to also, as you give me your thumbs ups, share the one thing that feels the most exciting or liberating or motivating for you when you do that exercise. What's the thing that feels like, okay, this would actually make me willing to kind of like take a leap into something that feels a little bit more unknown? Because when we Like I know for me, a lot of it was driven more by the need to take care of a child that was on the way and take care of my family's financial needs and the ability to do that, but then also be my own boss and not have to answer to somebody else. Those two things in tandem felt very motivating. So some of the things I'm seeing here, time flexibility, freedom, financial feasibility, schedule flexibility, able to be there for kids' events, travel time and money, more family time, better quality of life, better work-life balance, being able to spend more time with kids for sure, being able to manage health challenges, absolutely. More work and family balance, flexibility to provide the best patient care, work-life balance. Yeah, for sure. I love that. And the cool thing about the model that we'll be talking about today is that it's very flexible. Like if you were a ambitious empire builder and you wanted to build a big multi-million dollar business, this could be the springboard to that. But I think a lot of people that are initially drawn to this model really want more of a lifestyle business. And we really want to be able to make good money and kind of determine our own life and livelihood without having to answer to other people and with more freedom and flexibility of time. Yeah. Cool. Thank you guys for sharing that with me. Hopefully that's inspiring and motivating to think about. And the cool thing is like that can become your North Star. So if you end up making the decision to launch your own practice, the reason I do this as an exercise with my new clients is because once you start building a business, there's the risk that you build a business that just becomes another job and you end up trapping yourself inside of the business. And so being really clear about what you actually want in your own life is is a great way to create a North Star, to orient yourself towards what am I going to say yes to, what am I going to say no to in my business, and what business am I actually building. Here are some of the fears that might have stopped you so far from making the decision to start your own practice. Things like I hate my job, but what if running a business is even worse? Am I even cut out for entrepreneurship? I don't have enough money to get started on my own. What if I blow through my savings and we lose everything? I have a family and a mortgage. I can't afford to figure this out the hard way. And here's what I want you to know. These fears are valid. They're not excuses. They are real concerns. And if anybody tells you just to bet on yourself or just take the leap, they don't understand what's actually at stake for you. Uh, so, what I'm going to show you today is a different approach. So, as opposed to taking a leap, we're going to build a bridge so that it's less risky. So, you don't need to burn the ships. You don't have to quit your job immediately. You don't have to drain your 401k. You don't have to go all in on day one. You need a bridge. And what that looks like is first you need to get crystal clear on what you actually want, which is what we just did. We want to give you the opportunity to keep your job while you initially launch and use that steady income to fund your startup and smooth out the transition so that you don't have to take a financial cliff dive. Uh, Third, we use a lean business model that doesn't require six-figure loans or long-term leases. You can start small, prove that it works, and before you start to grow and scale. And fourth, you set realistic, specific targets to replace your income. So these are not vague goals. You're not saying I want to be successful. You're saying I need to treat three patients per month for 12 months to match my current salary. We're being specific. This is how you move from being an employee to an owner without risking everything. Sound good? So here's the system. Uh, Three pillars for a successful low overhead practice launch. And so pillar one is the vehicle. This is the low risk business model that lets you launch without massive overhead. Pillar two is the bridge. It's a strategy that lets you transition smoothly from being an employee to being an owner. And the money math are the exact numbers that you need to hit to replace your income and when you can realistically quit your job. So these three things work together. You can't just have one or two, you need all three. We're going to break down each one. So, first one, the vehicle. Let's talk about why the traditional model is, in my opinion, again, not the best approach to starting a new private practice. When most people think about opening a practice, they think I need to rent a retail space, build it out, hire staff, and then start seeing patients. The problem with that is you have a high fixed overhead before you ever see your first patient. I'm talking like $5,000 to $15,000 a month in leases, utilities, staff, insurance every single month. And that's whether you see one patient or you see 50 patients, right? It's a big all-in decision before you have any proof that people are actually wanting what you're offering in your specific market. And you have this really stressful break-even point that you have to hit every single month or you're losing money. And that pressure makes you desperate, and a desperate business owner makes bad decisions. So, what's the alternative to that? It's the low overhead mobile or hybrid launch. So no retail lease, no build out costs, no waiting for foot traffic. You're using community marketing, which I'll explain in a second, combined with a high margin service model. You're not spending $10,000 a month on Google ads and hoping somebody clicks and schedules a consultation. You're going directly where your ideal patients already are. And because your monthly overhead's low, talking like $1,000 instead of $10,000, you have room to make mistakes and you can test things and you can learn without going bankrupt. So, um, first, I'm going to show you what the marketing looks like, and then we'll talk a little bit more deeply about the model. So, just a little story growing up, I used to go fishing with my dad, and sorry, I'm getting distracted because I'm seeing somebody like writing on here or something. I don't know what's happening exactly. Anyway, we'll ignore that. Growing up, I used to go fishing with my dad, and we would go, again, I'm in Texas, we go fishing on these big public lakes, and we'd, cast our line and wait and maybe catch like a fish a day if we were lucky. And as I got older, my dad got us into this private fishing club where we could access these small stocked ponds on private properties. And we would go out and we would just catch fish all day. So we were just gathered where the fish were biting and we would just pull them into the boat all day. And for me, that's the difference between traditional practice marketing and senior living marketing. Uh, Community marketing and with a focus on senior living in the model that we're talking about is like fishing in a stocked pond. Traditional paid marketing, you're throwing out the line, you're spending a lot of money to throw out the line, and you're hoping that something bites. Um, you're spending thousands of dollars every single month, and you're just hoping that it works. The community marketing model, you're fishing in a stocked pond, you're going where your ideal patients already are, and you're offering value add services that build rapport and trust, and then you're scheduling them for consultations. So what actually are the mobile and the hybrid models? Um, so a mobile practice is where I actually recommend most people start. You don't have to be here forever, but this is where I suggest most people start. You're doing community marketing and your care is delivered in the patient's home. There's a focus on senior living communities because, again, senior living communities, that is a stocked pond. You have a lot of your ideal patients all in one place. It's very efficient to do marketing activities and to deliver care in senior living communities. You treat patients in their home and you have equipment that fits in your car. You don't need a leash. You don't need to build out. You don't need a bunch of retail overhead. You don't even need a trailer or a van or anything custom. You can literally just have I had my Honda Civic and I just threw everything in the trunk. That's all you need. A hybrid practice is the same thing plus a small office. So that small office would typically be like a small room that you're subleasing from another professional or an executive suite office with a short-term all-inclusive lease. So again, very low overhead. You would be able to use the office for patients who prefer in-office care, and then you're still doing community marketing as the primary lead source. Typically, what many of my clients that end up doing this model do is they start mobile. Once they have the cash flow and the patient flow, they lease an office. That's what I did too. I did purely mobile for about 4 months. And then once I had some proof of concept, then I leased an executive suite office. And then I ended up leasing executive suite offices in all of the territories that our practice served. All right. So if we look at startup investment, because I know this is a common question, how much does it actually cost to start one of these practices? If you are going to do a brick and mortar, your build out and your equipment's going to be 75,000 to $125,000. Your operating capital, because again, your overhead is high, is more like 50 to $75,000. And your pre-revenue runway, meaning that because you have overhead expenses that you have to carry until you start making money, is probably going to be between 25 and $50,000, meaning your total investments between 150 and 250K. A mobile practice, you're talking eight to $15,000 in equipment, five to $8,000 in operating capital. If you need pre-revenue runway, it's very possible that as soon as you start, you're actually profitable. But some people do like to have a bit of a buffer, so anywhere from nothing to maybe $10,000 to carry you through a month or two. So $15,000 to $30,000 initial investment. So essentially a 10x difference between a brick and mortar practice and a mobile or a hybrid practice. And this is why this mobile model is the bridge. You can actually afford to launch this while you're working your current job. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about the bridge. So, um, here's the strategy that a lot of people have questions about. Here's what you can do. You can start your practice on nights and weekends while you keep your full-time job. So this is not doing it on the side. You're actually following a clear 90-day kind of roadmap to get you through specific milestones so that you get the foundation of the business built while you're still working your job. You use your employer salary to fund the $15,000 to $30,000 of startup costs and cover your living expenses while you're building momentum. And then you get patient generating events booked before you leave your job. So you don't quit and then figure out how to get patients. You quit when you already have a pipeline set up and ready to go, which is how you de-risk the transition. So this is not about taking a leap or betting on yourself. This is about preparation. You spend the first 60 days doing behind the scenes work, setting up your business entity, getting your vendors lined up, building your website, scheduling your first marketing events, and then you take the leap once the pieces are in place. And the goal is pretty simple. You want to launch in 90 days, be profitable by month one, and be on track to replace your income within 12 months. Let me show you in a little bit more detail what that might look like. So this is an example or kind of like a roadmap of the actual structure of how this would look. So months 1 to 2, building the foundation, you're setting up your business entity, you're making critical model decisions, bundled versus unbundled, your pricing, insurance participation, et cetera. You're choosing vendors, building your brand, setting up your online presence. By month 3, that's when we essentially are getting ready to launch. You're developing your kind of baseline business systems. You're starting your community outreach, scheduling some marketing events, and you're running your first successful event and starting your first treatment program. This would be when most people would consider either quitting their job or scaling back to part time in their job. And then months 4 to 12, we're refining and we're growing the business. You're replacing your owner's salary or your employee's salary. You're replicating what works. You're expanding your marketing, potentially making your first hire. And then you're also, working on yourself, tightening your sales and delivery systems. Uh, this roadmap works. This is consistently, I've seen over multiple dozens of practice owners. This 1 year plan to launch works, but it really only works clearly and effectively if you understand the money math behind replacing your income. So let me walk through that with you. So, what we want to do here is we want to start from your current annual income. And then what we're going to do is convert that into treatments per month times your average profit per patient, which some of those you probably have questions about. So, I'm going to give you some examples here of what that might look like. And you can do your own numbers. But let's say, for example, that your current salary is $95,000 per year. So if we look at your business, if we assume you're going to need about $1,000 a month for operating costs, you're going to need about $107,000 of, I should say, profit there. And if we assume $3,000 of profit per treatment plan, which is conservative, by the way. Like if we think about the actual math here, if you have, say, a $5,000 bundled treatment plan, then cost of goods are going to be probably around $2,000, probably even a little bit less. So $3,000 profit per treatment plan is realistic. So we take that 107,000, we divide it by 3K, that's 36 treatments per year. That's 3 patients per month. 3 patients per month. Does that like if you look at it that way, when you're ramping up, that's you can do 1 or 2 senior living marketing events and generate 3 patients per month. And obviously you can grow from there, but the point is the bar to replace your income is probably way lower than you think it is. It's not 30 patients per month. It's probably more in the range of 2 to 5. Does that change how you think about this at all? Is that I know for a lot of when I have these conversations, often that one's a bit mind blowing. Type wow in the chat if that clicks for you. That seems maybe more feasible than you were thinking it was. Cool. So let's keep moving here. We know now that there is a lower risk vehicle. We don't have to build a really expensive brick and mortar business. The mobile or the hybrid model with low overhead is a low risk way to get started. There's a bridge. You can launch this business while you're employed. You can fund it with your salary. You can have a clear 90-day launch plan. The income math can be very concrete and to your specific situation. And it's probably more like 3 or 4 or 5 patients per month, not 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. Uh, and others like you have done this successfully many times in many markets. It's not theory, it's a proven. model and system. So the question isn't, can this work? It's, would you want to do the work that it takes to make this work for you? And so again, uh, here we are. You have two paths in front of you, and both of these paths, frankly, have risk, right? Path A has the risk of regret. Path B has the risk of uncertainty. But only one of these paths gives you the chance at freedom and the income that you actually want. So the question isn't really, is this risky? It's more, which risk am I willing to take? Uh, I would love to hear in the chat. I'm sure that you guys have questions. I'm sure that we'll want to dig in more fully. But right now, would you say that you feel ready? Like, does this feel like if you can see this and if you could have a conversation to apply it to your situation, type ready in the chat if it feels like this might be a direction you want to go. Yes, Rachel said path A has risk too. No guarantees on keeping my job. Yeah, I had a conversation several months ago with somebody who had been laid off from their job, and we ended up launching her private practice. But she was totally blindsided by getting laid off from her job that she had been in for 15 years at an ENT practice, and she'd been thinking about doing this for years, and this was the thing that finally pushed her over the edge. But yeah, there's no guarantee. In fact, what I we're in a, I don't know, like I won't be political or anything here, but I think that anybody would agree that we are in a bit of an unstable, uncertain time. And the thing that makes me the most confident is that I have entrepreneurial skills. When you become a business owner, you develop skill sets that make you extremely resilient to anything that happens in the outside world. You're not dependent on a job. You're not dependent on an employer. You always know how to go out and provide for yourself and your family. And to me, that in a world with instability and uncertainty is among the most valuable skill sets that you can possibly have. So I see the questions coming through here, and I'm going to make sure that I address those as we come towards the end here. So here are some of the big questions that I often hear that keep people stuck. Uh, and this is where we get into analysis paralysis. Questions like, should I take insurance or go private pay? Should I do bundled or unbundled? Should I do mobile only or should I have physical locations? How do I get patients consistently? What if I struggle with conversion? Somebody mentioned third parties. How do I compete against big box and third party? What equipment do I need? How do I test accurately? What about safety? Right? These are all concerns that are great questions. And the problem is when you're trying to Google your way through this stuff or ask people in a Facebook group or ask people that you maybe know, you're going to get 17 different answers and 17 different people, most of whom have never built a successful mobile business before. So you get stuck researching instead of launching. I had to learn the answers to these questions through a lot of painful and and expensive trial and error. Uh, and so, really, the key here is you just need a source of information and you need to be able to make decisions decisively. So again, we've covered a lot of this, why the traditional practice launch isn't the most optimal, the three pillar system, income replacement math, the proof, which means you don't have to figure this out alone. You don't have to risk everything. You don't have to keep waiting. You can launch with support. And so if you're probably like think maybe you've been thinking about this, maybe you've been considering options. What are the options going forward? You could stay employed, hope things get better. You could DIY your launch. You could buy a franchise. There are franchises out there for mobile practices as well as brick and mortar practices. I actually bought a franchise I'll tell you about in a minute. You could bring on a business partner, or you can follow a proven low overhead launch system with coaching. So let's just kind of quickly talk through these different options. Let's talk about DIY first, because this is probably what most people try first before they come to me. It definitely has the lowest cash cost, right? Uh, but the issue is the biggest cost is your time. What actually happens in a lot of cases, you take the next 6 to 12 months trying to answer those questions we just went through. Uh, you really struggle getting clarity, and ultimately nothing changes, and you get stuck in research mode. Or you do end up launching DIY, and now you have to learn all of these hard lessons yourself and pay for the avoidable mistakes yourself, which is going to cost tens of thousands of dollars and years of delayed growth. Ask me how I know. Nobody was teaching how to do this business model when I launched it, a decade ago. What about franchises? So my vestibular practice was a franchise. So I've experienced owning a franchise. And I know that there are franchises in this space. I've had clients who bought franchise mobile franchises and came to me after owning a franchise for additional help. Um, the franchise model, you're going to pay, a 5 to 6 figure buy-in, somewhere between 50 and $100,000, depending on the brand. You're going to pay ongoing royalties, generally 6 to 10% of your gross revenue forever. Uh, you get their brand and their systems and their marketing and their territory, which sounds pretty good, right? It's turnkey. But what they don't really tell you is that you're locked in. You can't change your branding. You can't adjust your pricing without approval. You can't expand outside your territory. You can't exit easily. Um, the risk profile is not lean. You're all in from day one. And if it doesn't work in your market, you're still on the hook. And you're also building equity for them, not just for you. So franchises do work well for people who want maximum handholding and don't care about control or full equity. And if that's you, that's great. But most of the people in here, and based on what I saw in the comments, this isn't what you actually want. And franchise might be the wrong vehicle for you. Another option is bringing on a partner, right? Splitting the cost, splitting the work, splitting the risk. I get why this sounds appealing. Starting a business can feel scary, and having somebody to share that burden with feels safer. The reality of it is that you're giving away 30 to 50% of your equity forever, not just the first year, right? Forever. You're splitting every decision. If you want to raise the prices, your partner has to agree. If you want to hire somebody, your partner has to agree. If you want to add a new service, your partner has to agree. And the reality is that about 70% of business partnerships fail within the first few years, which doesn't just end or damage the business, it hurts or damages the relationship between you and the partner. Plus, you're still figuring everything out from scratch in most cases. You still don't have a proven system. So you're guessing together instead of alone. So you're reducing the psychological burden of it all being on you, but you're trading that for a lot of downside. So that's the DIY, the franchise, and the partnership. Another option, which I might be biased towards, but this is my program. This is a program called Practice Launch. With Practice Launch, you're going to keep 100% of your equity. You're going to control the brand. This is your practice. It's your name, your brand, your decisions. Nobody else owns a piece of it. Your startup cost, the fees for this program are built into those 50 to $30,000 estimates. Again, that startup cost is 10 times less than a traditional practice and a fraction of a franchise fee and no ongoing fees or royalties, right? You're going to get a proven roadmap. You're going to get the exact systems and templates and scripts and everything that I use to build my practice. Uh, you're going to get 12 months of coaching. I'm in this with you for a full year, so you're not trying to improvise your way to replacing your income. Uh, so you're not alone, but you're also not giving up control. And you're not guessing, but you're also not locked into somebody else's system. So I built this program as the thing that I wished I would have had when I was launching my practice. And so I really made it something that I believe in deeply, and I take the responsibility of helping people launch a business very personally and very seriously. This is not a money thing for me. This is a meaning thing for me. I love helping people become self-employed. It's incredibly fulfilling for me because it had such a big impact on my life that I love helping other people achieve it. So let me go into a little bit more detail if you're interested, and then we'll jump into Q&A. So what you actually get when you join this program is the Practice Launch Blueprint, which is a complete business in a box training program. It's every single thing you need to launch your business, from setting up your LLC, pricing your programs, running your events. It's all documented, it's all templated, it's all proven. Practice OS is the second component. These are the exact systems that I used in my practice and that my private clients use. These are clients that have anywhere from $500,000 to $8 million practices. Um, you're a skilled clinician, right? But that doesn't automatically make you skilled in business. And this is like your MBA. This gives you the training and the resources you need to build your business acumen as you're growing your practice. The third part is 12 months of coaching. I actually used to do this program as a private one-on-one 3-month program where we would just get you to launch. And the problem is we would get you to launch, but then that's just actually the beginning. And you have a lot of other stuff you need to figure out in the business. And I didn't have support built for that. So it's now a 12-month, a year-long program. You're going to get multiple monthly coaching calls where you can ask me anything. You're going to get quarterly planning sessions to maintain your momentum. You get unlimited asynchronous support inside of our private community, and you get, hot seat troubleshooting for the problems as they come up in real time. So it's not a course that you buy and you never finish. This is coaching. I'm in this with you for a full year. And number four, you're joining a private network of professionals who are launching and growing their practices just like you. So you're going to share your wins, you're going to swap strategies, give each other feedback, build relationships with people who genuinely understand what you're going through, which is something I really wish that I would have had because starting a business can be lonely. And this means that you're never alone as you're building. Just kind of a snapshot of some of the resources inside the program. Just want to share a few words from some of the people who have already been through the program. Alexi always wanted to start her own practice, but she had never gotten around to it. She finally took the leap about 2 years ago now, and she's been successfully running her practice for the past couple of years. I have a screenshot from my client, Sam, who he messaged me back in like November of last year, telling me that he was just blowing his goals out of the water. He's about 1 year into his practice. He broke $300,000 revenue in his first year in a small kind of Northwest Arkansas market. So he's not in a huge metro market and he's doing incredibly well, not working that much, just started mountain biking and really enjoying running the business. Megan was another client that just launched her practice. She was intimidated to go into facilities, followed the program, made it work. Another client texted me, every facet so much better than my previous job, better relationships with patients, better outcomes, less burnout, more time off, better salary. Super glad we launched it. Melissa had actually been running her practice for 7 years prior to joining my program, and she was working like 60 to 80 hours a week. We got her down under 40 hours a week, making more money. Marty was in my program and he shared a win in the community where he sold 4 sets of hearing aids in one day. Uh, Abby actually just posted in the Mobile Audiology Facebook group this comment the other day because somebody was asking if this is a good model. If you have kids, she has 5 kids. She started while she was pregnant with her fifth, and she's been able to turn this into a 3-day-a-week business that has worked really well for her. Sadie was one of my first clients ever. She's been running her practice in Houston for about 4 years now. So again, this is the roadmap that we follow inside the program. We give you all of the resources throughout the entire way to make this happen. But I don't want you to, this is not a pressure. I'm not asking you to buy anything right now. This is going to be one of the biggest and most impactful decisions that you're going to make in your career and your life. And I'm not in the business of pressuring anybody into making that decision. However, if you're finding yourself thinking this could be right for you, it definitely could merit sitting down for a planning session. And I'm offering 5 private one-on-one planning sessions, which I normally charge for no charge. And during that session, we'll deep dive into your unique situation and identify the challenges that may be facing you and causing you not to launch. And if it makes sense, we can put together a plan about to get you transitioned into launching your private practice. So if that's something that's of interest to you, this is what you would do. You would apply. I've got this URL here, and then I'll have a QR code here in just a minute. Answer a few quick questions about your situation. If you are approved, then we'll book a private strategy session, limiting that to 5 in February, and closing the applications for that on February 13th. We would get on a call, put together a specific launch roadmap for you, timeline, budget, business model decisions, next steps. And then if we both agree this is the right move for you, you can join the program. And then if it's not, then I can point you in the direction of some free resources to help you get to wherever you need to go next. So that is the end of my presentation. I'm going to leave this screen up here so you guys can scan that QR code. And I will actually, let me go back here and I'm going to type the URL in the chat as well, just so you guys have it. bit.ly/launch. Okay. All right. So let me just scroll through these questions, and then if more questions come up, please do feel free to add them in the chat. So Christy said, I'm struggling with the third party aspect. I don't want to participate with insurance. Do you think that's realistic for starting out? I definitely have clients that started by not taking third parties from day one. Um, I think that the reality of taking third parties is that it's an easy lead source. So if going out and promoting yourself and the consultative selling and all of that stuff is a weak point for you, then you might have to start with third parties. If you already have some conversion shops, then you can probably get away with not taking third parties. It also depends on your market size and your specific market. I always look at those types of decisions through the lens of kind of like if we imagine uh, the x-axis is simplicity and complexity, and the y-axis is profitability and unprofitability. Like the most simple and the most profitable is going to be private pay, right? Um, it's still relatively simple, just less profitable to run a business that takes third parties. A big caveat with third parties is if you're purely mobile, you have to be really strategic about how you take third parties. I actually don't think that taking third parties works very well in a purely mobile practice because of how efficient you have to be in a purely mobile practice and how little you get paid to serve a third party patient. But that is one of those things where looking at your unique specific situation and all of the dynamics that go into that are the way that we make the decision. There's not a correct answer to that question. Um, Yeah, Sarah said need to figure out specifics about equipment, pricing, accounts with manufacturers. Totally, that's all logistics. That's super, super doable stuff. Um, Sarah said need to determine demand in my area. One really good starting point is just to jump on Google Maps in your area and just look for senior living near me and see how many senior living communities you have in your market. Um, I think if you have more, it depends on your goals for what you're trying to build. But if you're trying to, be a single provider making $100,000 a year, you don't need very many. If you have three, four, or five facilities, that's sustainable for the long term. With my practice, we were doing 1.5 to 2 million revenue, and we were in around 100 senior living facilities. And we hadn't even really skimmed the surface of what was available in the Dallas Fort Worth market. So, but that's, looking at looking at the number of senior living communities in your market is going to be one of the best ways to determine demand. But even smaller, more rural markets can work. It's just a slightly different strategy because you're really at that point just trying to make yourself kind of the most well-known audiologist or hearing professional in your market and becoming the go-to. Sarah asked if there's insight about leasing a small office in another business space, lease considerations, pricing, etc. I would say that's kind of logistics stuff that would be something that we would get in the weeds on in a coaching arrangement. Specifically, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is that when you're getting started, a short lease term is ideal, like not getting locked into a multi-year lease term. I did month-to-month executive suite offices, and that worked really well. And those were around $1,000 per month per location. Katie said, "Can you walk me through how follow-up care is typically handled for mobile patients, especially when they need adjustments and ongoing support?" Yeah, well, I mean, one of the mistakes that people make with this business model is that and frankly, this was a mistake that I made when I was early in my business was I didn't clearly define what I would and wouldn't do. I was pretty desperate to get business, and so I just kind of like told patients, they had my cell phone number, my business cell phone number, and I was like, call me, text me, I'll come out and get you taken care of. And I was kind of Johnny on the spot, which when you have 30, 40, 50 patients is fine. When you have several hundred patients is it's no longer feasible to drive, 45 minutes to go change somebody's wax guard for the fourth time. So we actually had to develop mobile membership programs and really clearly define what was and was not covered in their mobile membership service program. And so that's something that I help my clients build because that was a painful lesson that we learned was structuring your follow-up care and creating guardrails around what you will and won't do and what's included and what's not included and what's extra so that there's clarity. And the interesting thing is uh, the more guardrails you put up, your patients actually respect that, and the families are more motivated to like learn how to help them take care of their devices and stuff because they don't want to have to pay every time you come out for follow-up care. So it's an insightful question and definitely a good question to be thinking about. I'm gonna assume you guys have that. So anybody in here want to turn on their camera and jump in and talk about anything that's going on? If you guys are all good and all your questions are answered, you can feel free to head out and apply for that if you wanted to apply. I appreciate your time. Anybody who wants to hang out and stay for more Q&A, as I said, I'm happy to stay here as long as you guys would like to chat with me. All right, I see Rachel popping up. Rachel, yes, I'm gonna have you. All right. Christy, you already have your camera on, so I'm gonna let you unmute and talk to us here.
Hi, I'm sorry,
Hey,
I'm walking, but I'm
no,
freezing.
it looks cold.
And I'm in Florida, so I'm a baby.
I'm in Texas. I'm the same way. Yeah,
Yeah,
I get it.
I have thin blood, but so I have been toying around, obviously owning my own practice. I kind of shared a little bit with you, Brad, on the side that I have a good friend of mine that I used to work for, and she has a practice very much south of me in Florida, and she's willing to support me. She's had her practice for 15 years, and she's been very, very, very successful. She does not take third parties, so she does bundled care, but completely private pay. And she kind of has been toying around with the idea of franchise, offering me the support that I need that way. But obviously, I know that comes with a price, like you talked about.
Yep.
So I'm not 100% on board with that. But I currently practice actually doing um, teleaudiology. I am concerned now. The pricing structure of the company I work for, I think is outrageous. It's bundled, but I think it's crazy high. Too high. I've never seen prices this high. So, and I've been audiologist for 28 years, so there's that. Um, I would like to offer patients, obviously bundled care, but I worry about the third parties.
Hmm.
Um, I worry about if I do bundled, is that gonna affect me with people who want to use their insurance benefit? Would it be
Sure.
better to go unbundled um, and and work it that way so I'm competitive with the third parties, um, but they don't have to go through all the rigmarole of an insurance policy and what
Yeah.
that brings with it.
So, yeah. So what I'm hearing is like there's this opportunity to work with somebody who's already been there, done that, and that feels like it potentially is a easier on-ramp to practice ownership because you're not having to like answer a lot of these hard questions and reinvent the wheel from scratch, right? And so the question I always ask somebody when they're considering a partnership, considering a franchise, considering like giving up some of their ownership from the outset because of uncertainty is if you had confidence that you could do these things effectively yourself, would you want to be able to have the full ownership of the business? And I don't know if we just lost Christy. It looks like we might have. But hopefully that's a help. If we lost Christy, hopefully that's a helpful.
Oh
Are you
no,
back
I'm
with us,
still here.
Christy? Okay,
I
cool.
am. Sorry. No, that's my problem is that I feel like I need to have control because I do feel like uh, part of my issue in audiology has been following everybody else's rules.
Yep.
And I hate to say it, but I don't always agree with their rules. And
Yep.
I feel like it's not always black and white, and there is a
Yep.
gray area there. And when it kind of resonated with me when you did describe like the different approaches, like DIY and franchise and partnership. And I kind of feel like now that you've brought light to that, I feel like I do want to do it on my own rather than have somebody else chirping in my brain about
Yep.
things that I want to change or things that are working or not working, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
I
I'm
think
mostly
that
concerned about, oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I think I'm just mostly concerned about actually the insurance piece of it than
yeah.
anything else,
Yeah.
just because I feel
Yeah.
like it's taking over the world.
For sure, totally. It's a valid concern. I think that most of us who are considering entrepreneurship, business ownership, there's like some germ of like not being a very good employee in the sense that we have our own opinions and our own ways that we want to do things, and that can cause friction for us, or we have to tamp that down so that we don't make waves, and that eventually that becomes a pain point. I know that that was certainly the case for me. I'm like a pain in the ass employee, big time. So, uh, if that's you, then probably it's a good sign that you would be a good entrepreneur. And so the questions around like structuring your treatment program so that you're able to compete with third parties and big box. Like there, all of these things are, I'm working with practices that are very established practices that are in competitive markets. There are ways that you can be creative with your program design to cast a wide net and catch patients who are in third party programs that you don't participate with. And there are ways to position yourself to be just a premium only practice. And so that all comes down to like strategy and implementation. But that's all stuff that it's just like, yeah, if you don't know how to do it, then it feels big and scary, but there are there are things that you can do to address those challenges and to navigate the market, and the market's going to continue to change. And so that's where developing those entrepreneurial skills of learning how to zig and zag and play in the market is the most valuable skill set you can develop. So they're totally valid concerns, but they're also concerns that have approaches that you can use to navigate them.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. This was so informative. I love that.
Good. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Rachel, what's up?
I guess one of the biggest obstacles I'm worried about is my current employer hitting me with a conflict of interest
Hmm.
or a do not compete clause.
Yep.
Are there resources in your program to help navigate that?
It's actually funny. Like, I told the story of me starting my practice. Actually, part of the motivation behind the model that I didn't mention was my boss's son was also her attorney. And when I was let go that day, they also had a very rigid non-compete agreement that they re-reviewed with me that I had apparently signed as a new grad audiologist that I wasn't aware of. And so I was in the Dallas market and had like a 15-mile non-compete radius, which in that type of market is a huge non-compete radius, and it kicked me out of the market that I lived in that I would ultimately want to be working in. And so I actually used my mobile business to work outside of the non-compete territory until I got past my non-compete clause. Um, Full disclosure, don't tell anybody, but I did also, kind of sneak into some of my competitive territories and do a little bit of work there too. Um, I mean, I think the reality of non-competes is that they're pretty hard to enforce, but if your employer wanted to be a jerk about it, they could definitely make it expensive and painful for you. Um, so, you want to read the room and kind of know the vibe of your employer and if it's likely that they'll come after you. I think that the nice thing about this model is that you're probably not going to have a office address that you're putting on a website. And so it's pretty hard for them to track down where exactly it is that you're serving patients. And I think as long as you're not like overtly poaching and like trying to like download their patient list before you leave and then reach out to everybody, as long as you're not doing shady stuff, then I think that you can be pretty thoughtful about how you approach it and avoid being on their radar.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. What market are you in?
Um, I'm in Iowa City,
Okay.
so
So yeah, I mean, I don't know if like where your practice is relative to how far the suburbs sprawl, if you could potentially work outside of the territory, outside of the radius for a period of time.
it would be because it's an ENT practice, so they see patients in outreach clinics up to 2 hours away.
Mm. Are you working in
But
all those locations?
no, as audiologist, I am just stationed in Iowa City.
Yeah.
So
I think that, I mean, like everything that I've seen around non-competes is that they are becoming less enforceable actually over time. And
okay,
so the laws are becoming more like friendly to people starting businesses, more restrictive against employers being able to stop people from working. And I would guess in a situation like that, I'm not an attorney, etc. But I would guess in a situation like that that they would really only be able to justify making any kind of claim around the actual office that you see patients in. I doubt they could
okay,
say we've got offices in, this 50-mile radius, and so you can't work anywhere. Like that's overly restrictive and it wouldn't hold up.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I would
Thank
be
you.
happy to sit down and like kind of look at your market and your territory and see if you wanted to try to strategize where you could start things off.
Awesome. Thanks.
Cool. Have a good one.
You too.
Anybody else want to jump on stage here with me? Sarah, hello.
Hi, thanks for picking that up because I can't find the hand raise thing.
Yes.
Um, so I'm curious about, I mean, I commented about the equipment that's necessary. Your figure that you put out there was shockingly low.
Mm,
Um, also, like I had said, the manufacturer accounts and getting
hmm
support
Yeah.
from manufacturers and reps and all of that, especially with anticipating obviously being very small,
hmm
in their book. And then also audiologic support and resources as well. I actually haven't been at this that long. So something that I do really care about though is delivering the level of patient care that I really want to.
hmm
Um, that while that's really important to me, at the same time, I'm not 100% convinced that I'm actually in a position to do that.
mm,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, cool. So regarding equipment, generally what I suggest is a portable. audiometer and Relier, a inexpensive video otoscope like a Firefly, uh, and a travel bag with all of your kind of equipment that you would need, your cleaning supplies, your domes, your receivers, your etc., paperwork, etc. Uh, the audiometer and Relier that the most of my clients use is the MedRx system, which I actually have a buying agreement with MedRx. So normally their audiometer Relier combo is like 13,000-ish, and if you buy it as inside of my program, it's like 8,500-ish. So you save like $4,000.
Okay.
So it's doable for sure.
Okay.
Um, you're not probably buying like a Verifit and like you're not buying like the very most tip of the top equipment, but you're also buying equipment that's portable and that's easy to throw in a bag in the back and put it in your car. Um, the manufacturers, some of my clients use a buying group because as a small practice, a buying group does give you more buying power and you can get better pricing and you can get all your vendor accounts set up in one fell swoop, which just makes it easier. Uh, some of my clients have more kind of affinity for one or two manufacturers and they just want to focus on a couple of manufacturers. And if you're just using a couple as your primary vendors, then normally you can go to them and if you're able to get them bought into the vision for what you're building, then you can negotiate pricing and get decent pricing directly. So again, that's one of those that's like not a there's a right answer, wrong answer, but there are different approaches that you can use. And this is something we talk on coaching calls about frequently is how to negotiate with your vendors to get the best pricing as a small startup practice.
I'm having a hard
Um,
time even getting in touch with anybody. It's I've been trying and I'm kind of shocked at the degree of difficulty that I'm encountering so far.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've heard some people say that about some manufacturers that start with a P in particular. But I think that it probably just depends on the rep that's in your market, and how responsive they are. But buying groups can be a way to kind of cut the line because they already have a direct contact with all the manufacturers. Yeah.
Okay.
Did I miss another question?
Just the audiologic support
Yeah.
and
Um,
resources.
Yeah, the one thing this one is I almost hate to say it because it's kind of speculative. I don't know if you're familiar with Cliff Olson, but he's an audiologist in Arizona that he does a lot of YouTube content. I've worked with Cliff and Hearing Up for the past 4 years now. And Cliff and I built a business of best practices course about a year and a half ago, where he kind of like taught how to do best practices and then how to communicate it to patients in the clinic. And I'm talking to Cliff about getting that, licensing that from him and having that inside of the program. If not, I think it's like a $300 or $400 course. It's not a crazy expensive course. So that would be a pretty quick way to get yourself back up to speed on kind of like best practice patient care.
And then what about like any ideas other than, a network that I've built, ideas about, when you're hung up on something. I mean, I guess there's all the Facebook groups and everything, but being able to reach out to someone and say, "Hey, like this is a situation that I have and programming or testing or, whatever."
Yeah.
Like because like I said, I want to be able to deliver that. And I know there's like the manufacturers like audiology support and all of that, but beyond that, like anything that comes to mind or ideas around that.
I mean, not to overly self-promote, but that's a lot of what our practice owner community is,
Okay.
inside of my program is clinical questions as well as things tend towards business questions in my community, but everybody there is I pretty thoroughly vet my owners and everybody that I work with. I want them to be following clinical best practices, and so everybody that's in my group is a pretty A tier clinician. Um, but I think if you don't end up working with me, then probably your best bet is just like Facebook groups, your state organization, networking with other audiologists, things like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. hmm Rachel, long time no see. Rachel can't find her unmute button, guys.
Oh, there it is. Do you have specific buying groups that you recommend?
I mean, I wouldn't say that
Just in,
I highly recommend one over the other. I do
okay.
have quite a few clients that use Pivot.
Hmm.
They actually own a practice in California. They're a family-owned business, so they're like not one of the corporate cha buying groups.
Hmm.
And so that's the one that I refer the most clients to.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
hmm Who else? Any other questions that anybody would like to jump up here and talk through? Hey there.
Hi, thanks for hosting this. I have a couple
Yeah.
questions. When you're looking at senior living communities, are you establishing contracts with those senior living
Hmm.
communities, or are you mostly doing marketing events to get more private pay patients?
The latter.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. Typically the contracts are more like nursing homes, so like skilled nursing facilities where they're more Medicaid heavy and they want you to be a contracted facility or provider and actually bill through their facility. Some assisted facilities run the same way, but um, one of the biggest challenges is actually getting your foot in the door in the facilities, and the more complicated you make that, the harder it is. And so just hosting marketing events and then working directly with the patients is the lowest barrier to entry.
Great. Thank you.
hmm
Another thing, is there any visit confirmation policies that you put in place or even safety policies you put in place for mobile practice as you're going to people's homes for potential private pay clients?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, safety is what we did around safety in my practice is I would we really didn't do a lot of private homes. So we were mostly in senior living facilities. If we did do a private home, it was either me, just because I was the only male audiologist on our team, or we would require like an adult child or a companion to be present at the appointment. But most of the appointments we were doing were just in a senior living facility, so you're, in a public place. Um, what was the first one around confirmations? What was the question there?
Yeah, if you're doing more private fittings, is it in like a senior living? Like I'm trying to picture how it works. Do you go to the senior living community and have a room set aside that's quiet just for fittings, or is it more of a public space where people are kind of coming in? Do you do a marketing event and then a fitting, on a different day, like a fitting
hmm
day? Is that kind of how that works in terms of structure? I'm just trying to picture it in my mind, like what it
Yeah.
actually like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is like one of the biggest pain points that I see when people try to do this model, aside from not putting up guardrails, is running these clinics. Like what I frequently see is people will go to a facility for like a half day and do evals, and they'll do like free evals. But the problem is these people don't know you or have any context for you, and they just saw that it was a free event on their schedule. And so they just go and they're not really like very qualified candidates. And so you waste half a day and nobody's interested in doing anything. So we do 60 to 90-minute events, 10 to 15-minute meeting blocks with the patient or with the residents. And that's all pretty scripted and structured so that you can do like a little micro rapport building session and then give them pretty clear next step recommendations. Um, and then there are some facilities where they'll have like a home health office or something that they'll let you kind of shack up in and see patients in and have the patients come to you. In most cases, you're actually just going to the resident's room. and doing the appointment in their room.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for providing
Yeah.
context to that. It helps me visualize it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. My pleasure. Um, Sound is a question as well. How do you make environments quiet enough? Generally, so if you're doing a screening event, like it might be kind of noisy, and that's just kind of like you have to tell people to pipe down and to not talk while you're trying to do a hearing screening, and people are generally pretty okay with that. But we're doing pass-fail screenings. We're not doing diagnostic tests in a noisy room. Um, Doing hearing testing in a private room, generally the ambient sound is pretty low. Using insert earphones, and if there is ambient noise, if they have like a noisy, box fan in their window or something, then putting over the ear muffs over the top of the insert phones. We had brick and mortars as well as our mobile practice, and so we had plenty of patients that we had tested at their home, and we had tested in our clinic, and our test retest was consistent anecdotally. Um, some people do opt for like a kudu wave. I think kudu wave is the name of the system that's actually designed for field testing. I think it's kind of overkill. Generally, if you're just in a private room, then it's pretty quiet. You can put insert phones and muffs over the top and you're fine. What other questions? Anybody else want to join me up here on stage? Okay, I'm going to just one more time pop that up. If you guys want to grab a spot, I've seen several applications come through already, so it looks like we're probably getting pretty close to filling those 5 spots. But if you guys want to grab one, that's your link. Thank you guys for coming. I'm assuming no other questions. Feel free. You'll get a couple of emails from me after this. Feel free to email me if further questions come through. I appreciate you guys taking some time with me today. Y'all have a good one. Take care.